Arthur, I was really glad that we could do this interview session today. So obviously, I've also known you for quite some time now. We've traveled together and we've actually worked together on some stuff. But I've always really liked your journey just because of how quickly you got to where you are and like how good you got at what you do. So just kind of give a quick introduction about what you do, what you're focusing on at the moment, and then we can just start diving deep as we go along.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm helping 3D animators, one, get really good at what they do, as well as helping them get clients and make money online is a lot of their ultimate goal. But for the most part, I've got like a coaching program / online course that mixed together, and essentially it just helps people accelerate their progress in 3D so that they can start creating professional work and either get clients online or work in a studio or whatever their ultimate goal might be. Yeah.
I mean, the cool thing, like what I've always liked, is that you started yourself as a 3D modeler and creator. Like that was your passion for a long time, actually doing the work as well. Like,
Yeah.
I can't remember, but did you start that even back in school days?
Yeah, I did. I was doing a lot more on the video editing side, just as like a hobby and for fun. And slowly, I started to add in like 3D elements, and then eventually I ended up just transitioning straight into doing 3D full time. Yeah.
Okay. What were those like first videos that you made? Like, were they like remix skateboard videos or something?
I used to be a big gamer, so there used to be like montage videos of like kill streaks and all sorts of stuff like that. But back in those days, everyone was starting to make their videos really fancy, like really good editing, and then you'd see some people adding in 3D elements. And I was one of those people that would start to add in like 3D logos of text in the video, and then you're like, oh, like how do I make this text move with the scene, and how do I make the lighting better, and this and that. And yeah, slowly grew into 3D by doing that.
So you kind of like learnt it almost as like a need. It's like you weren't like like, oh, I want to learn 3D. It was like, I'm making these cool things. I see what everyone else is doing. I see they're doing 3D.
Yeah.
I guess I better learn a bit of 3D.
Yeah, it was pretty much just like an add-on. Also is a lot more challenging than the video editing stuff, so I found it more interesting. And when I started to see people like making fully 3D animated like montages and stuff where they literally recreate the game in 3D, that's what really caught my eye and made me end up switching to doing it.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like,
So in the videos, they would obviously have the game, and then they would remake videos of the game, but fully in 3D.
pretty much, yeah. So they would take like a screenshot of like the game, and then they would remodel the whole. Let's say it's like I don't know, like a car park where people would like shoot each other. They would like remake the whole car park in 3D, obviously stylize it where they wanted it to, and then they would animate characters and stuff and imitate the way that the gameplay was made. But obviously, if you're animating that, you have more control in terms of like the graphics quality, and you can swap out different things, and like there's a lot more creative freedom with that. But yeah, people used to make just crazy stuff, and I was like, I want to be able to do that. So
Oh, that's cool. I literally didn't know that, but it reminds me a lot of, so obviously with programming and coding and stuff, you have all these different languages, you have all these different frameworks. But the one thing people often do for like a very, very first project is a to-do list. So you just recreate like a to-do list, but you do it in these different languages, these different frameworks. But it's like you at least know what you're trying to recreate, and then you're introducing like your own elements, but like you at least have this goal that you're trying to achieve, as opposed to just like, I don't know what I'm trying to build, but it's like now you know,
yeah,
and you have to do these certain things to get there.
yeah, 100%. I would probably contribute that as like one of the biggest things that helped me learn really quickly. It's just for reference. It's like if you want to create professional product images, it's like looking at what they look like and trying to recreate that. as opposed to trying to come up with things and create lighting techniques and stuff. A lot of people have already figured the stuff out. It's like, what does a professional image look like? Let me try and at least recreate that. And then you learn so much going along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like even if you don't get it perfect, you've still at least jump in. Like you kind of forcing yourself to learn the things that the top people are already
Yeah.
doing. And even if you get like 70 or 80% there by like imitating, it's like you're still picking up a lot of skills to do that.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me actually a lot of what because I have a YouTube channel, but I don't post a ton on there. But it's kind of like subconsciously, I just not subconsciously, but just from what I've learned, I did that by default. I was like, okay, what are other people doing for their thumbnails? What are other people doing with their captions? What structures are people putting their videos in? And you've also
Mm.
done that. I remember, I mean, you've got a pretty big YouTube channel as well for yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny. It's like you just copy what works, and then, or like not copy what works, but like you just follow what works, and then you'll get so much further, as opposed to like starting your YouTube channel, for example, and then trying to figure out like, oh, what is a good thumbnail? What's going to help grow my channel? And like trying to think of these things where so many other people have thought and tested that stuff for years. It's just like, oh, this is working well for them. Let me just try that. And a lot of the times it works well for you as well because they've tested it. Yeah, it's very interesting, especially in my industry. Everyone wants to be like creative. But like I almost feel like that's like a false sense of thinking, like trying to come up or be original. It's like you'll just learn so much slower that way, whereas you can just copy what works. You'll learn so much more that way. Yeah.
You mean especially from the start? It's like don't try to be creative at the start. Just copy, well, not copy, but imitate, learn from people who've already done it, essentially.
Yeah, that's such a big thing. I've had criticism in the past of like, oh, you're just copying this person, or you're copying that, or this and that. And it's like, I don't care necessarily about being creative or being original. I just want to create like really good work. And if I'm going to copy the 10 best people out there and get really good, then I'll do that, as opposed to like trying to start from scratch or create my own image or whatever. I'm just not as interested in that as a lot of the industry I'm in is. But yeah.
It's interesting though, because it sounds like when you first started doing your video montages of gaming and stuff, like that was coming from a place of almost like passion and creation. But then you kind of went off into now what seems like, okay, I'm already kind of creating stuff I want to, but I want to get better at it. Was that kind of, I don't know, was that kind of like the flow of it?
In a sense, like obviously when you start something, anything that you do, at the start it's fun and it's creative and you exploring a lot of things, but soon that kind of gets old. You've kind of explored a lot of things that you've done, and then it's either you're just gonna keep doing that, and in my experience I'll get bored, or it's like, okay, like how can I take this to the next level? How can I get really good? And then like the goal changed from like just being creative and having fun to like, oh, let me try and become one of the best at this. And that was my new goal. So it wasn't necessarily being creative or creating projects with fun. It's like, how do I make a lot of money? How do I become really good at the skill? And I just realized in order to do that, it's like you need to copy a lot of people and learn from the mistakes that they did and also the things that they're doing right. And then like I kind of just put my creative ego to the side at that point. It was like, hey, my new goal is to get good at this, not to create original 3D projects or whatever.
That's actually something really interesting. You said, I want to put my creative ego to the side because I think that probably causes a lot of people to stay in that place of not making any money from something they love, but they're like, oh, I'm still staying true to my passion. But it's like, you're not, you don't have the base, you don't have the income to keep doing this thing forever. But if you
Yeah,
kind of step away and just like, hey, I'm going to have to do some things I don't like or not as passionate
yeah.
about, but then I can in the future.
Yeah, it is quite a funny thing. I've noticed in so many different areas, not just like in 3D. A lot of people, it's like the ego just gets in the way. It's like, they don't want to copy people because it's not original or care about what people think or this or that. It's like me personally at the space I'm in right now, I would 100% copy someone if it made me a lot of money. Like I wouldn't care what my mom or my friends or this or that person thinks, because that's not what I value in life, you know?
Yeah.
For me, like money honestly is something I value just because it's so useful. You can do so much with it. So it's like if I'm gonna 100% be copied and like everyone hates me for it, it's like, so what? Whereas I feel like a lot of people, there's such a big thing in 3D. It's like they want to be creative. They want to create things brand new. But unfortunately, when it comes to getting hired by companies and stuff, they're not looking for creative people necessarily. They want a return, you know, like they want someone that can create professional work. Yes, like they want something new and like creative in a sense, but ultimately companies want to make money, and they will take someone that's less creative and can produce predictable, high quality work versus someone that's like always taking too long to make the projects because he's like always thinking about like, how can I make something new and this and that, and like someone that's more unreliable, but more creative. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, no, from the way I interpret it, it's like obviously you don't want to go actually copying people like, oh, I created this,
Mm,
but it's like, no, I was inspired by this. I'm trying to model this to learn, use it as a framework. Like once you know that
yeah.
framework, then you can kind of move around again. Like it reminds me a lot of music when I was playing a lot of guitar like a while back, isn't that? You need to know like the bit of theory, and you learn that often by learning other people's songs. You don't go say I wrote this song, but you do covers of it essentially. But you
Mm,
like, hey, this is someone else's, but I learned to play it, and this is like my rendition of it. But you've picked up all those skills along, and then you can
mm.
introduce your own personality, and you make your shifts from that point, and that's how you end up with like all these cool new bands and sounds and everything. Same, I imagine, with 3D and creation.
Yeah, 100%. It's like I forgot what the quote was, but it's like you can either I would rather learn from the people that made all the mistakes than figure it out myself. Like there's it's like if you're gonna cross a street, it's like you'd rather, instead of figuring out how to cross the street correctly, like learn from someone else who's crossed the street safely, you know? It's like
Yeah.
the same. I was like, it's a bit extreme, but it's the same principle with everything. It's like this whole concept of coaching and learning and stuff. It's like learn from people that have done it before, um, and then that way you'll get there a lot faster, as opposed to like trying to come up with it in your own way or figuring out your own path. And then at least when you're really good at it, then you can be more creative and like have more options and decide what you want to do, and the way you want to do it. But it's better to do it that way as opposed to trying to figure it out from the start. You'll spend so much time. I've done that, so I know you'll waste a lot of time. Yeah.
What do you have? What was that moment for you when you changed from like, okay, I'm doing this out of passion to like, no, let me become the best, learn the skills, learn the techniques. Like, was there a specific moment that you kind of like switched to that mindset?
Well, I guess, well, for me, it wasn't really like a choice necessarily. So like I dropped out of high school, and when I dropped out, it was like it's kind of like do or die kind of moment. Like if you this is the only thing I was really good at. Um and it was like, yeah, you have to get really good at something. And at the time, 3D was the thing that I knew the most. Um, it's either that or you just become like one of those failure high school dropouts and all that stuff. And for me, that just wasn't the way I wanted the rest of my life to be. So I had no choice. It's like, yo, you just become really good. Not necessarily because I wanted to become good, but more so it's like a survival kind of thing. And yeah, that's if you like a high school dropout and you've barely got any skills or anything besides like creating 3D objects on a computer. It's like, well, I guess I have to get really good at this one thing that I at least know quite well at the time. And yeah, luckily it worked out. So
Yeah. No, I feel like that also comes down to like I've always felt that you've had really good mindsets. Like I feel like that's even back then, that's a good mindset. A lot of people might feel sorry for themselves and just kind of give up almost. But it seems like your default was like, well, shit, I've got to make something work now. And you just kind of like put your head down and start doing it.
Yeah, in a sense, I grew up around a lot of movies, and I kind of adopted the hero story and always saw myself as that, like the hero in all the movies and the series and stuff like that. And when I dropped out of high school, it kind of hit me really hard that that wasn't where my life was going. And that was a very painful moment. And it was like, you have no choice. You have to become the hero, just because like that's kind of what I grew up watching quite a lot of the time. And I would say that was like a big influence in terms of like my drive. In a sense, it's like if you grow up around people that are always successful, for me, the successful people are in movies and series, but in the same sense, like if you grow up with people that are very successful and you can see yourself becoming a failure, it's like you're very pressured to not go down that route and be like all the people that you grew up as. In my case, it's just fictional characters on TV, but it's the same kind of concept. Yeah, that was probably a big drive for me.
Yeah. I mean, speaking about like you saying like fictional, like how the characters weren't like in your world, but I guess it's almost like the same as having online mentors these days. It's like, yeah, you might not be on the same continent, you might not be in the same place, but there's Facebook groups with people who have good mindsets. There's mentors you can obviously pay who have these good mindsets and will push you. I guess it's kind of like just watching like very super inspirational movies just all the time, but then you're actually also
Yeah.
think you actually take action at the same time. You can have the back and forth as well.
Yeah, it definitely wires your brain to, like, at least for me, it wired my brain to be like one of the best. Didn't really matter what it was, just because a lot of the movies I was watching, everyone was being like the best of what they did. Definitely wired my brain that way. And then the same as like after I dropped out, it's like the type of people I was watching were like the best business people, the best 3D people, the best health and relationships people. And just, yeah, if you do that for a few years, your brain's just gonna get wired. It's kind of like the osmosis, like an average of the people you hang out with. So if you're just listening to that all the time, it wires your brain to think the way very successful people think. And yeah.
Yeah, that's been a big thing for me is because I didn't have the best mindsets growing up. And I still have a lot of them kind of like they pop up now and then, but it's like when you've had it for so long of like kind of the water on the stone, like drips, 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 and carves like a deep root. It's like it takes also just as not just as long, but it also takes a while to undo those mindsets. So it's like you really
Yeah.
have to be immersed with those good mindsets, good people, good influences type of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like the best advice I give to people like that want to like be successful or like be really good at something, it's like you hang around the people that have what you want and like a 5, 10, 15 years ahead of you, and you just spend as much time around them, because in a sense that's like the ultimate immersive form of coaching. Whether it's paid, or whether you're doing stuff for them and like exchanging value in somewhere, or maybe you're just living there with them or being around them for free. Just by being around them consistently, like they might say something here that like really changes the way you think about like what you want to do. They might like do something that really opens your eyes, like all this sort of stuff. But like just being around people that are ahead of you, whatever you want to do, it's like it's in a sense coaching, which will like obviously help you improve extremely fast because you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did. Yeah.
So do you take a lot of those mindsets and thinkings into how you work with your students, like in your programs and such? Like how does that kind of show up?
Oh, 100%. A lot of the stuff I teach people, I've learned from someone else. Like there's maybe, I guess with the 3D aspect, there's because I just know so much about it now, there's a bit more creativeness in terms of like creative problem solving for my students and stuff like that, just because I know where like how all the systems and stuff work. but when it comes to like just general principles of like how you get good at things, how you become successful at different things, the way to think about solving different problems and the way you get good at things, it's like most of the time I've learned it from another coach, or someone else that I was around that was a lot better than me. A lot of the stuff I teach, I've learned from guys that were like creative directors in studios and stuff like that, and they grilled me and taught that stuff, and it's like, that was really good, I should teach that to my students. And it's no surprise that they'll get good results just because it's really good teachings. But I learned that from other people as well. It's funny, like there's a lot of things where if you just follow certain systems and principles and rules, like you'll just get good results just because it's in a weird way. I wouldn't say it's a formula, but it's just a process that works. And if you just adopt that same process, you can get really good results as well. Yeah.
You said something quite interesting. Like, I'm kind of changing the words a little bit, but you mentioned what you're teaching a lot of the students that you're working with in your programs is you're saying you're teaching them what works, how to learn, what doesn't work. So it's like almost you're teaching like a general framework of getting better at things, but then obviously the focus in this case is 3D, but it could be applied almost in any way.
Yeah, in a sense, it's like, how do you get good at a skill set? Because you could, I could be teaching all the technical 3D stuff in the world, but if you're, let's say you want to get into doing electronics and you're busy modeling furniture and doing that, it's like you're getting good at the wrong thing. Like that's just one example. But also like the way you get, like the process that you take for getting good at 3D, like there's ways of getting good at 3D a lot faster than some people are doing. Some people spend like weeks and months on like a single project. And if like there's other people that get results really quickly within just a couple of weeks, you know? So like there's different methods that you can use to get good at 3D faster. So yeah, it's like teaching them in the technical stuff of like, oh, this is how you do different things in different areas in 3D, but it's also like, this is what the structure you should follow if you want to get good faster, as opposed to taking a long time. And you know.
Okay. So if you've seen someone that you're working with, he's like they've been on a single project that's just going on and on and on, and you're just like, hey, like no, you need to cut that now. I mean, you can finish it, or you can switch a project and focus on something that's actually going to improve your skills faster.
Yeah, it's like one, like working on the skills that's actually going to impact you and benefit you. It's like in coding, you're not going to learn a language that you're never going to use, you know. So like the same with 3D. It's like, yeah, like learn the skills, do the types of projects that you want to work in. Like don't do like beverages if you're never going to do hired by a beverage company and you just want to work with jewelry. It's like there's no point, but people do that, you know. It's like, oh, I'm going to practice doing beverages for a week. It's like, why? Because why are you doing that? And like, yeah, it's like one, it's like getting good at the right things, but there's also processes that you can do to get good at things faster, as opposed to taking a long time. Because yeah, as you said, I've seen people just spend weeks and weeks and haven't really done much. And it's like, okay, like let's cut this off here. We need to change something if you honestly want to get your results quickly. So yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like it ties back to, well, essentially how you got started. Like you learned out of necessity. Like, what do I need to know right now that's going to get me closer, as opposed to like, oh, I've got all this time in the world to just try things. You're like, no, what do I need to know? What's going to get me kind of there, type of thing.
Yeah, in a sense, I didn't. Yeah, that I didn't really feel like I had a bunch of years because everyone at the time was going off to university and stuff, and I still barely had anything to my name. So it's like, okay, like if you want to make money, like what are the things that you need to do? And I realized like products was like a big thing. So that's something that I just focused on more and more. And then like obviously getting in contact with people that are like creative directors and stuff, you're like, okay, this is what companies at the time that I was working at really valued. And that's what I focused on. I didn't do like I didn't focus on like 3D characters or this or that or any other area, just because I knew at the time like products was the best thing for me, and something that I was really good at. So
Yeah. What was there a moment for you that you kind of realized you're like, shit, I'm starting to actually get really good at this stuff?
you go through weird phases, like there's like a phase where you think you're good at 3D, and then there's the next phase where you realize how it's like weird. It's like it's you think you're good at 3D, and then you realize what being good at 3D really is like, and you
Yeah.
realize how bad you actually are and how far down the line you are.
Yeah.
And then it's like you get to a phase where like, oh wow, I'm actually like pretty good at this. And then there's another phase you're like, whoa, this guy's so much further ahead, but I'm pretty decent. And then it gets to a point where you kind of like there's something in your brain. It's just like, okay, you know what's going on here. Just the way you can kind of solve problems and stuff, and like you can just look at a still image and you like know exactly what to do. And like at that moment, it's kind of like, oh wow, like, I actually know more than most people at this point. Obviously, as you speak to a lot of people, you realize how far back a lot of people actually are. And then
Yeah, I guess it's the whole thing. Like, we don't realize we're getting better at something. Well, it kind of works in both directions. It's like we don't realize we're getting better at something until we see someone who's totally like new or like really a
yeah
beginner, and you're like, oh damn, I was there like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and like you just see it as like so obvious now. Then you also see the
yeah.
people who are really far ahead, like you can't even like understand their frameworks really or like their mindsets.
Yeah, it was funny. There was a time when I thought I was really good, and I guess a lot of people that there was a lot of people that looked up to me at the time.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, I'm pretty good compared to the people that are watching me and the people I'm around. Um, and then you hang out with someone that's like 10 years ahead of you, and then he just grills your work, and you're like, wow, I'm not as good as I thought, and you see how good he is. Um, yeah, it's a very interesting process, say the least.
Yeah, I guess it also can be a little bit validation-y. Like if you kind of surrounded by people that you're the top kind of person there, like you're the most skilled, you're like, oh, I like being the top person. But then
Mm.
it's like unless you break out, you're just gonna stay there and there's so much more room to grow type of thing.
Yeah, that's why I find it so important now. It's like that. There's this rule where it's like you spend 30% of the time of the people with people that are below you, like 30% of people, 30% of your time like on the same level, and 30% of time with people that are above you.
Mm,
Just because if you're like always hanging around with people below you, you always think you're on top,
mm.
and then that's going to catch you off guard. The same as if you're always just working with people that are kind of at your level, you still kind of comfortable but not super happy. And then like if you're also spending time with people that are above you, it's always keeping you in check. Like you might be like, oh, I'm really good at this,
Yeah.
and then they're like, no, you're not. It kind of kicks your ego in gear and always make sure that you're always improving. So you like need a mix of the people, otherwise,
So I mean, it sounds like you have like a bit of a passion kind of imparting that stuff to the people you work with as well. Like what kind of inspired you to go the teaching direction and having programs and things like that?
um, there was a few reasons. One, I was just kind of getting bored of what I was doing at the time, just like doing more and more projects, kind of getting over it. Like I wasn't learning that much new, and I knew there was a lot more I still could have learned in 3D, but like at that point, I wasn't that interested in learning more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the time, like my focus was more on like, oh, how do I make more money? How do I focus on other areas of my life? I was becoming less and less of a computer person as time went along. Granted, I've spent a lot of my life on computers, so it makes sense that I'll get over it at some point. Um, so like there was like a getting bored, like wanting to make more money, but also to be honest, I just knew if I did like coaching and stuff, I would probably do less work just based on like a lot of coaches that I knew. But then there's obviously the aspect of helping people. At the time, I was already doing a lot of I was helping thousands of people online through tutorials and like all sorts of stuff, and I was like actively helping people and commenting and all that stuff. But you can only do that for so long, and at some point, it's like, okay, like if I want to do this stuff full time, I need to be making more money. There needs to be more of a return for me. And I was like, cool, like I can maybe just switch into doing this full time, charge higher rates and stuff like that, but then at least focus on it 100%. And yeah, for me, it was also just something new. It's like if it doesn't work, you just go back to doing projects and stuff online anyway. Like I knew I was in high demand. So it's like, okay, let's at least just try this and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a like an important thing that you mentioned. It's like, yeah, it's nice to try to help everyone if you can. Like you were saying, you have all these amazing tutorials, and you were even responding to comments and stuff, which I'm sure there were like it was a lot, like kind of a lot to keep your head around. But it's like when you stretch yourself too thin, you're kind of giving everyone a much smaller percent in regards to what you can, because you spread so thin. So
Yeah.
it's like, do I help more people but in a much reduced way, or do I reduce the amount of people I'm helping but like they're getting 100% essentially?
Yeah, 100%. Like even if I'm commenting on YouTube videos, for example, you have no idea what the context is, who they are. You don't even know if the question they're asking is the right question. You know, like they could be asking something that's not even relevant to where they're at. They could have just been emotional and they're just crying. They don't even want you to fix their problem. Like you have no idea, and like you can't realistically help people if you've got like thousands of people that are asking for help. And that's also the thing with like an online course, for example, where you just get the videos. It's like, yeah, they're paying less, but still, what if they have questions? What if they need help with this and that? And like if you've got 1,000 people in your program, it's like really hard to help each individual. So it's like if you want to reduce the amount of people that you're helping so that you can help them more, it's like you have to just increase your prices. And if you're doing something that you feel is very valuable to people, there shouldn't really be a problem charging higher rates. But then at least it's almost like a good thing having less people, because as you said, you can get them better results. You have more time to help them out individually. Like I'm very strict with the people that I let in. I could have let in a lot of people into the program, but it's like you just know some people are going to be a lot to manage, some people are going to be difficult to work with, and like you've got like 50 people that are just high maintenance. Like you have no time to actually help the people that really want to get good at the stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. I've also seen that a lot in like clients and stuff that I've spoken to in regards to what I do. And they like literally the one lady I speak to this morning, she said like, yeah, I had someone helping me with my website, which I don't really do website stuff, but she was like, yeah, I had someone setting up a WordPress site for me, but it wasn't the greatest. There was a language barrier, and also it was time zones. But it also makes me think about, I've heard those stories before, especially when it comes to like agencies. Like they'll take on too many projects at too low of a price point, and then they're just juggling like 20 clients at a time, and no one gets proper focus. And like people can feel that. People can feel when you're not like 100% there.
Yeah. 100%. That's very interesting. It's like it's a weird thing. It's like if you there's two sides. Like if you're someone that's going out there and looking for someone to get a problem solved, and you want to charge low rates, it's like the chances are they're going to give you a bad project. They're going to take up a lot of your time, communication problems, all sorts of stuff like that. And that's just going to be an even bigger problem for you. And the same as like, oh, if you're looking for help from someone else and you expecting to get a really low rate, it's like you're going to get bad service as well. I've often found like the people that paid the most and paid the quickest and paid the full amount have been like the best clients to work with, just because they actually value your work at that price. So they'll take it seriously. Whereas everyone that's like asking for discounts and payment plans and all sorts of stuff like this, very often they've been like the most high maintenance people and like have just been the most difficult to work with. And the same as me, like when I've signed up for stuff and I paid like a low price, like I've taken it less seriously, it's taken me more time and this and that. Whereas I've paid coaches like a lot of money just like that, like not even thinking about it, and I've gotten the best results for myself and for them just because of that. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing.
I mean, is there like one thing you tell all the people who join your program? Like, I don't know, is there like a certain like mindset or something you tell them from the get-go to like always keep in mind?
In terms of what, pricing or?
No, no, no. Just in regards to like, if you want to get the best results from working together, this is what you need to do, or this is what you need to keep in mind. Like, is there something like that?
100%. Like our program's got like rules and stuff. It's like, hey, like just because you've paid for this stuff, like it's in my week one of my program. A lot of people like they get a huge dopamine hit when they give someone money. You know, it's like, okay, I'm that the fact that they're transferring money makes them feel like they're doing work. When
Mm.
it's like you're now in the program, now it's time to start doing work. You know. So in like week one, it's like you have to watch the videos, you have to follow the structure, you have to join our Q&A calls, post on our Facebook group so that we can actually help you. If I'm doing one-on-one coaching, it's like, cool, you need to show up to these calls every week. You need to do the things that I'm telling you. Otherwise, you can pay me all the money you want. If I'm giving you a bunch of stuff to do and you're not doing them, it's like you're just in the same position you were when you started. And yeah, it's like a very set structure of things that you need to do if you want to get the best results. So it's not necessarily mindsets. It's just like, this is what I've seen worked with students, and this is what's happened with the students that I've seen like nothing's worked for them, and like just avoid that stuff and like do the stuff that people that have gotten the best results have done, and you should get the same results. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It also again comes back to, I don't know why I keep on bringing it back to like the first thing you said, but it's like when you were learning things out of necessity, it's like these are the things you need to know to get to where you want. It's kind of the same thing. It's like
Mm.
you need to do these things, and that's going to get you the result. If you're going to go off the path or try other things, you're going to be dabbling, or like it's going to extend your journey out for so much longer. Like I know that definitely happened with me, like the shiny object syndrome. Like, oh, let me try this. Oh, let me try YouTube channel. Which I mean, some of them worked out pretty nicely, but I was definitely pulling my attention in multiple directions as opposed to just 100% on one thing.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you have to, like, we also do this in our programs, like defining what your goals are. Like there's so much to learn like in 3D alone, let alone other areas of your life. And it's like you can't learn everything. It's like what is your goal? Like focus on the things that are going to get you there, and then you should get there. Like in 3D, everyone's like, I've seen this industry is like so scattered. Like everyone's just doing so much random stuff. They don't know. Like I've asked people like, how many clients do you want to have? How much do you want to make? And people haven't even thought of this stuff yet. They're busy learning all these different things inside of 3D, and they don't even know why. They have no timeline. They don't know how long it's going to take them to get there. And like everyone's just kind of dabbling around, and that's cool if like it's a hobby for you. But like if you actually want to become successful and like make progress and get something out of it, it's like you have to know what your goal is, and then like do the things that are relevant to that. Otherwise, you could just be someone like that's just like, I know so many people that have like 50 courses of different things and they're getting nowhere. You know, it's like rather just focus on one and commit to that until it works. That, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's actually a good point to kind of start wrapping up. It's like just like that running theme kind of we've had now of like you got to know where you're trying to get to, and then
Mm.
you got to know what are the things that are going to get you there, and you just stay on that damn path. You don't go try to dabble in a bunch of things. I mean, you can for fun, but if like you want to get somewhere, like you need to just stay on that kind of that straight path, and that's often where a mentor comes in, or having a framework or program type of thing. So I mean, if people wanted to check out kind of what you got going on, anything, is there any way you'd specifically direct them to check out?
If you just type in Arthur Whitehead on Google, I should have links that pop up to like YouTube, my website, all that stuff. Pretty easy to find. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks. I really appreciate the time. And yeah, it's been awesome chatting.
Oh man. Yeah. Sweet. Nice to chat to you too.
Same, same. Chat soon.